You never expect to meet the love of your life while she's fighting cancer and you're the guy adjusting her four-line. But that's exactly what happened. Back then, I was a 34-year-old hematology registrar. Long shifts, sleepless nights, paperwork up to my ears. I wasn't looking for anything romantic, my personal life was as empty as the vending machine in the staff room. Then came her. 23, battling non-Hodgkin's lymphoma with the kind of courage that made me question what I was doing with my own life. I'll never forget the first time I met her. She was sitting on the hospital bed with a fleece blanket wrapped around her shoulders and an four-line taped awkwardly to her arm. No wig, no makeup. Just these huge, tired, honest eyes that met mine and didn't flinch. Her first words to me? "You don't look scary like the other doctors." I chuckled and replied, "Well, that's good. I'm only scary on Mondays." I wasn't supposed to notice her like that. Ethics. Boundaries. Every medical school drill playing in my head like a broken record. But I did notice. The way she never complained, even when she had every right to. The way she made jokes about her hair loss to make the nurses laugh. The way she made me feel something again in a job that had started to turn me numb. I'd stop by her room even when I wasn't on her case. We never crossed any lines. A gentle pat on the hand. A longer than usual chat about a book she was reading. She told me once I was the only reason she didn't dread chemo days. 8 months passed like that, slow, painful, but meaningful. When she was finally stable enough to be discharged and passed on to outpatient care, we hugged in the hallway like it was a casual goodbye. But it wasn't. We exchanged numbers. Made vague promises to keep in touch. I even texted her a few times. But she never really answered back after the first month. And I figured, maybe I imagined it all. So I moved on. Or at least, I tried to. I told myself it was for the best. She was young. She had just come out the other side of a war most people don't survive. Maybe I was a symbol of that chapter of illness, hospitals, fear. Maybe she needed to forget it all to move on. I couldn't blame her for that. Still, I check my phone way more than I should have. I reread our few texts. The last one from her said, "Thanks for everything." Really? I mean it. No emojis. No heart. Just polite. After that, radio silence. I even messaged her once, months later, just a simple, "Hope you're doing okay." Never got a reply. And yeah, I felt stupid. Here I was, a grown man, senior in my department, pining over someone who probably didn't think about me at all anymore. Eventually, I transferred to another province for a fellowship program. I told myself it was about career growth, and in part, it was, but honestly, I needed distance. From the hospital. From the memories. From her. I threw myself into my work. Long hours. Night shifts. Research. Presentations. Anything to keep from remembering the curve of her tired smile or the way her voice would go soft when she said goodbye. By the time 6 years had passed, I had told myself the story so many times that I believed it. She was just a patient. A passing phase. A kind face during a tough time. Nothing more. But that was a lie. And I had no idea that the truth would come crashing back at me in a ballroom, of all places. It was one of those black-tie medical charity balls. You know the type, everyone pretending they're not burned out while sipping champagne and smiling through gritted teeth. I wasn't even planning to go. Last-minute RSVP. My date bailed the morning of. I went out of professional obligation more than anything. Slapped on a tux, down 2 espressos, and told myself I'd leave before dessert. I was doing the usual rounds of polite nods and awkward small talk when I saw her. At first, I didn't even recognize her. Her hair was long now, curled and glossy, no sign of the chemo that once stole it. Her dress was this deep green that made her look like something out of a dream I didn't know I'd been having. And when she laughed, really laughed, I felt this weird, involuntary pull in my chest, like a hand had reached in and tugged something loose. I froze. She turned. Our eyes locked. And suddenly I wasn't at a charity ball, I was back in that hospital room, watching her sleep with a book folded on her chest. Except this time, she smiled first. She said my name like she'd been waiting to say it for 6 years. We both started talking at the same time, then stopped, then laughed. It was stupid and awkward and perfect. I asked if she wanted a drink. She said she already had one but would absolutely pretend it was empty. We found a quiet spot in the corner and just talked. 4 hours. Like we hadn't missed a single day. Like she hadn't ghosted me. Like I hadn't spent 6 years wondering what I meant to her. And when the band played something slow, I held out my hand without thinking. She took it. No hesitation. You know how people say time heals all wounds? Nah. Sometimes time just makes the cut deeper. You just get used to walking around with it. But that night, holding her on the dance floor, it felt like that old wound, the one I never admitted was still bleeding, started to close. She leaned into me like she'd done it 1,000 times. Her head rested lightly against my chest, and I could feel her breathing sync with mine. We didn't talk. We didn't need to. And no one dances that close unless they mean it. Afterward, we didn't even try to pretend we were going to leave separately. She said she was staying at a hotel nearby. I asked if she wanted company. She didn't answer, just reached out, laced her fingers through mine, and started walking. That night, I won't cheapen it by trying to describe it like some cliché. It wasn't about lust or nostalgia. It was about two people who'd circled each other through the worst parts of life and finally collided when the world had stopped spinning quite so fast. She cried after. Not during, after. Quietly. While her head was on my chest and I was tracing circles on her shoulder. I asked why. She said, because I thought I'd never get this again. I almost told her I had waited. That she was the ghost in every relationship I tried to have after her. But I didn't. Not yet. The next morning, over terrible hotel coffee and one shared croissant, she looked at me and said, I know we're older. I know we're different now. But if you want another chance, I do too. And I just nodded. Because my voice would have cracked. We didn't jump straight into anything. Not officially. I mean, sure, we saw each other constantly. We'd FaceTime when she was on call, I'd visit her every weekend I could. But neither of us was exactly sure what this was yet. We were older, more cautious. She'd been through hell and back. And me? I'd spent the last few years pretending I didn't want exactly this. But second chances come with baggage. One night, about 3 weeks in, she said it out loud, I'm not the same girl from the hospital. I told her, good. That girl needed saving. This one saves herself. She didn't say anything. Just blinked really fast and kissed me like she was trying to memorize my mouth. That was also the night she told me about the guy she dated after treatment. A short relationship, nothing serious, at least, that's how she said it. But I could tell it wasn't that simple. He didn't like her scars. Made jokes about them. Asked her not to talk about the hospital in front of his friends. When she finally dumped him, he told her she'd never be fully normal again anyway. I saw red. Pure, blinding red. And not just because of what he said, because I hadn't been there to protect her when she needed it. She placed her hand on mine and whispered, I don't need you to be angry for me. I just need you to stay. So I did. That weekend, we decided we were doing this for real. No more hesitation. No more pretending to be platonic plus ones. We were in. And as it turns out, there were a few surprises waiting for me after that decision. Like the fact that she was now the co-founder of a startup developing pediatric oncology software. Or that her brother-in-law, who worked in IT at my current hospital, was technically under my supervision. Yeah. I had no idea she was related to one of my colleagues. And I was definitely not ready for how awkward that was going to get. So, a few weeks after we made things official, we decided to go public. You know, soft launch relationship vibes. We weren't the types to post selfies with heart filters or anything, but we went to a small dinner party hosted by her sister. That's when the chaos started. I walk in, bottle of wine in hand, all polite smiles, and I see a familiar face sitting at the kitchen island, her brother-in-law, Greg. Greg from IT. Greg who had emailed me that morning about a systems update. Greg who was, at that exact moment, sipping a beer and doing a double take like he just recognized a ghost. "Wait, you're dating my boss," he said. I froze. I thought he was joking. Then he pointed at me, then at her, and said again, slower this time, "My boss." She turned to me, blinking like she was trying to compute the overlap. "You never told me your brother-in-law worked in my department," I said, laughing in disbelief. "I didn't know he worked in your department," she replied, laughing harder. Cue the weirdest family dinner I've ever been to. Greg was chill about it, honestly. Too chill. He kept giving me this amused look all night like he couldn't decide whether to high-five me or interrogate me. After dessert, he pulled me aside. He said, "She's the strongest person I know. You hurt her, I'll find a way to turn off your oxygen mid-surgery." Totally deadpan. I said, "Understood." He patted my shoulder. "Good. Now pass the cheesecake." Weirdest family vetting ever. But that night, after everyone left and we were curled up in her tiny apartment with a rerun playing in the background, she turned to me and whispered, "I've never brought anyone to dinner before. Not since everything." And I realized this wasn't just dating to her. This was trust. And I was in deep. For a while, everything was shockingly normal. Too normal, maybe. We settled into a rhythm: weekend breakfasts, shared playlists, the occasional argument over thermostat settings. I'd cook, she'd burn toast. I liked mornings, she hated them. It was imperfect and easy and so full of life I forgot, sometimes, how hard won it all was. But here's the thing about second chances: the past doesn't vanish. It just waits for quiet moments to whisper. And soon, little things started popping up. Nothing dramatic, no shouting, no slammed doors. Just shifts. She'd go quiet whenever someone from her old cancer support group texted. She avoided talking about the year after she left the hospital, who she became, where she lived, who she leaned on. One night, I brought it up gently. "You know you don't have to protect me from your past, right?" She nodded. "I know. I just don't always know where to put it." That line stuck with me, don't always know where to put it. And then came him. Not a person. Not really. Just a name. A name I saw flash on her phone one evening while we were watching a movie. Lucas. She flipped the screen down fast. I asked, "Friend?" She hesitated. Just long enough for the air to thicken. "Yeah," she said finally. "From before. He helped me through some things." That's all she gave me. I didn't push. I should have pushed. Because from that moment on, something started to change. Not huge. Not right away. But it was there. A feeling in the pit of my stomach. Like I'd let a door stay cracked open. And something old was slipping through. I told myself it was nothing. Lucas. Just a name. A friend from a bad time. Someone she leaned on, maybe even someone she leaned too hard on, but that was then, right? But then he started showing up more. Not physically, just in the gaps. In her silences. In the way she'd suddenly need a moment after checking her messages. In the way she started locking her phone. I tried to be cool about it. Mature. Understanding. "You can talk to me, you know," I said one night, when she was staring a little too long at her screen. She gave me a tired smile. "I know. It's not a big deal. The thing about being in medicine is that you get good at reading body language. Micro expressions. Changes in tone. Things people don't say." She was lying. And it wasn't a big deal because it was already a big deal. I didn't want to snoop. But one night while she was in the shower, her phone buzzed. It lit up with a message preview. Lucas, I still think about that night. Always will. I stared at the screen like it was a lab result I didn't want to believe. That night. What night? I didn't touch her phone. I didn't say anything. I just sat there, every muscle in my body clenched like I was waiting for a crash. She came out in a towel, smiling, hair dripping. Movie, she asked. I nodded. But I didn't watch a single scene. I couldn't. I kept thinking about how I had held her hand through chemo. Sat beside her as she cried. Waited 6 years without even knowing I was waiting. And someone else, Lucas, got that night? Whatever that meant? That was the first time I felt it, the betrayal. Small. Subtle. But real. And I wasn't sure what to do with it. I didn't confront her right away. I tried to be rational, tried to tell myself it's probably nothing, maybe just a memory or an inside joke. Maybe that night was an emotional breakdown or a bad dream or something that felt more significant in the moment than it actually was. But once doubt gets in, it spreads. Every smile started to feel practiced. Every phone check felt like a secret. Every "I'm just tired" hid like a closed door. We started fighting. Not big, cinematic fights. Not the kind where someone storms out and the rain's pounding on the window. No, ours were cold. Quiet. Snaps disguised as jokes. Long silences after short sentences. Me asking, "You okay?" and her saying, "I'm just busy," like busy explained the sadness in her eyes. Finally, one night, I broke. We were brushing our teeth side by side. She was humming. Like everything was fine. I put my toothbrush down and said, "Who is Lucas, really?" She froze. The humming stopped. Then came the sigh. You know the one. The sigh that means here it is, the thing you didn't want to know. He was there when I fell apart, she said quietly. After treatment. After I moved away. I waited. He was kind. He helped me forget everything. Just for a while. We were never official. I didn't love him. But I let him believe I did. That hit harder than I expected. Did he know about me? I asked. She nodded, eyes low. Eventually. I told him everything. He knew I still thought about you. And now? I asked, voice barely steady. Do you still talk? She hesitated again. Yes. But not like that. Not like that. What does that even mean? I stared at her for a long time, trying to find the girl I fell for in that hospital room. But for the first time, I wasn't sure she was still there. And I didn't know what hurt more, that she lied, or that maybe. I didn't know her at all. After that talk, we didn't go to bed together. She said she needed space. I nodded, grabbed a blanket, and laid down on the couch without a word. But sleep? That didn't happen. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, heart thudding like it was trying to outrun the truth. I replayed everything. The hospital. The 3 a.m. conversations. Her telling me I made her feel safe. The way she cried the night we reconnected, saying she thought she'd never get that again. What did that mean now? And Lucas, some shadow of a man who had held her when I couldn't. A man who got her after the battle, when she was trying to rebuild herself. I'd been the wartime support, but he'd been the post-war piece. Was that what I was now? A reminder of pain? A nostalgia trip? The next morning, I made coffee. She walked in wearing one of my t-shirts, like everything was fine. Like she hadn't just detonated a truth bomb in our lives. She gave me a soft smile and said, "I'm glad we talked." Glad? I nodded, but inside, something was cracking. I left for work without kissing her goodbye. And here's the thing, For a long time, I thought love could survive anything if the foundation was strong. But what happens when the foundation was built on grief? When your entire origin story is a hospital bed and the unspoken feeling of this probably won't last anyway? What happens when you finally get a second chance, only to realize you might not be the only one who got one? I started pulling back. Little things. Didn't answer texts right away. Stayed later at the hospital. Didn't ask if she wanted to make weekend plans. She noticed. I could tell. But she didn't push. Maybe she thought I was cooling off. Maybe she was hoping I'd get over it. But I wasn't cooling off. I was preparing. Because I had a decision to make. I spent the next few days drifting. At work, I was detached. At home, I was distant. And every time I looked at her, I saw Lucas. I saw that other version of her that I didn't know, couldn't touch. The version of her that had somehow lived without me. The version that let him think he meant something. But the worst part? I could see how much she regretted all of it. Every time her eyes flickered with guilt when I said something too casual, or when she touched my arm like it was fragile. She was waiting for the bomb to go off, just like I was. I couldn't let it go. So, one evening, after a particularly exhausting shift, I came home and sat her down. No distractions. No TV. No food between us. I can't do this anymore, I said. She looked at me, surprised, but didn't interrupt. Her hand rested on her lap, like she was already preparing for bad news. I can't pretend that I'm okay with you still talking to him, I continued. I thought we were building something real. But I don't know if I can trust you. Her face crumbled. I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered, tears welling up. I didn't know how to explain it. How to tell you that part of me isn't gone. I swallowed hard. But I'm not the guy who comes second. Not now. Not again. There it was. My breaking point. I had never believed in ultimatums before, but this was no longer about me wanting her. It was about me needing her to be here. To be fully, completely present. I need to be your priority, I said, softer this time. Not the man who only exists when the past isn't around. She didn't say anything at first. Just sat there, still, blinking fast. Then, finally, she whispered, I've always wanted to be that for you. But I didn't know how. I let out a slow breath. Then we need to figure that out. I didn't leave that night. But the choice was made. And I wasn't sure how things would go, but I couldn't keep holding on to someone who wasn't ready to let go of their ghosts. And neither could she. The next few weeks were slow. Painfully slow. We didn't jump straight into a happy ending. No sudden declarations of love. No quick fixes. But we started to untangle the mess. To talk about what really mattered. And what had to be left behind. She finally admitted that Lucas wasn't just a friend. He was someone who filled a space she couldn't fill for herself. He was there when she was at her lowest, but not in the way I had hoped. He was a crutch, a temporary solution to permanent pain. But that was the past. I couldn't change that. And honestly, I didn't want to. Because if I did, I'd be asking her to erase who she was, and that wasn't fair. What I wanted, what I needed, was for her to choose me. But not just because she felt obligated to. Not just because she thought I deserved a second chance. I needed her to choose me because she was ready to be with me, fully. One night, we went for a walk in the park. Quiet, cool air. No pressure. Just the sound of our shoes on the gravel path. I've been thinking, she said, after a long pause. About what you said. About needing to be your priority. I waited, watching her closely. She took a deep breath. I think I can do that. I think I've been afraid to choose, because I was so afraid of messing it up again. Of hurting you again. But I see now that I have to let go of all that. Of Lucas. Of my past. I reached for her hand, squeezing it tight. I wasn't sure I believed her yet, but I wanted to. I needed to. I'm not asking you to forget, I said, voice steady. But I need you here. With me. Without holding on to the past. She smiled. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't all clean and neat, but it was real. I'm ready, she whispered. And that night, we started fresh. We let go of the ghosts together, even if we didn't know exactly how to do it. But we were willing to try. For a while, we took things slow. No rushing. No trying to fast forward to the happy ending. I won't lie, there were still moments when doubt crept in. I'd catch her staring off into space, or I'd see her looking at her phone and wonder if Lucas was still lingering in the background of her life. But this time, I didn't panic. I didn't immediately assume the worst. Instead, I asked. I let her talk. And she did. She opened up about her struggles, her fears of failing again, of somehow not being enough. One afternoon, after a particularly difficult conversation, I realized something important. This wasn't just about me forgiving her. It was about her forgiving herself. And that was the hardest part. I didn't need perfection. I didn't need everything to be neatly tied together. What I needed was for her to stop running from her past and start living with it, alongside me. We started therapy together. It wasn't easy. Sometimes it felt like we were digging up more than we could handle, but I saw her trying. I saw her learning to trust, to be vulnerable. And in turn, I had to do the same. There were days when I questioned if it was worth it. If I was just holding on to something that wasn't ever going to work. But then she'd show up with coffee in the morning, or hold my hand in public like it was a secret we were sharing with the world. And I'd remember. I remembered why I fell in love with her in the first place. Not because of who she used to be, but because of who she was becoming. We were both broken. And somehow, together, we were starting to rebuild. Months passed, and we found ourselves learning each other all over again. It wasn't just about old hurts or lingering doubts. It was about building something new, a new foundation where we could both stand, where we could be ourselves, flawed and raw, and still choose each other every single day. I started noticing the little things again, the way her eyes would light up when she talked about her favorite books, the way she'd hum when she was cooking, how she'd nudge me with her shoulder when we were watching TV. The things that used to make me fall in love with her all over again. But it wasn't just about me falling in love with her. It was about her falling in love with us. Not the version of us from before, when we were each trying to fix what was broken. But the version of us that was still figuring it out. The version that said, we might not have it all figured out right now, but we're still here. And that's when things clicked. She started trusting me with her fears, her memories, her struggles. She stopped holding back, stopped pretending everything was perfect. We both did. We didn't need perfection. We needed honesty. We needed the messy, vulnerable moments that made us human. The ones that didn't have neat answers. The ones that didn't come with guarantees. I think that's when I knew I could forgive. Not because I had to. But because I realized forgiveness isn't about erasing the past. It's about making space for the present. If you'd asked me a year ago what I thought would fix our relationship, I would have said time. Just give it enough time, and things will heal. And while that's part of the equation, what I didn't understand then is that time isn't just a passive thing. It's what you do with the time that matters. It's about what you choose to do with the moments in between the arguments. The awkward silences. The moments when you're both standing on the edge of will we be okay? And I'm not sure anymore. Time only works if you use it to understand each other better. To be willing to show up, even when it's hard. To forgive, not just each other, but yourselves. That's the thing I wish I'd known from the start. We were both doing the best we could, but we were doing it from a place of fear. Fear of getting hurt again. Fear of being vulnerable. Fear of giving all of ourselves to each other, only to see it fall apart. But that fear? It's always there. It never goes away. What matters is that we stopped letting it rule us. We stopped letting it control how we saw each other. We stopped being afraid of the past and started being brave enough to face the future together. Now, when I look at her, I don't just see the girl I fell in love with in that hospital room. I see the woman she's become. The one who's not perfect but is willing to show up, day after day. The one who isn't afraid to say, "I love you," even when I'm not sure how to. And I see myself, too, someone who isn't perfect, but who chooses to be here, even when it's hard. Even when it's messy. What I've learned from this whole thing is that love is messy. It's not some grand, flawless thing. It's a series of decisions. Small choices. Every day, you decide to stay. You decide to forgive. You decide to love, even when it feels like the world might be pushing you apart. So, if you're reading this and feeling like your relationship is teetering on the edge, here's my advice: don't give up on the hard days. Don't let fear stop you from working through the mess. If you love each other, that's enough to keep trying. And if you're like me, you might look back and see that what felt like the end was really just the beginning. And there it is, your full story.